Okay, testing. We are live. Excellent. There we go. Hey, welcome back, everyone. We are going to, and once again, I left my stream running in the background, and so I am hearing myself. Gotta shut myself down. Okay, so I got some requests since last week for some various stream ideas. So I was going to go through and attack one of them, which was all around building out custom WPF controls from scratch. Uh, you code too late. Yes, I do. um, oh, that's Dan. Hi, Dan. You are up very late. I know what time zone you're in. So I was going to look at building out a custom WPF control from scratch just to kind of walk through that process and see where that goes. I figured I'd pick on something kind of like a rating control, like a star rating, 1 through 5. Um, but unlike most rating controls, we'll let it go to 0 because sometimes you really do want to downvote and give something 0 stars. So I figured we'd go through and build that up. As always, if people have questions, comments, you're right, Dan, you still can't spell, of topics you'd like to see, or feel free to either hit me up on Twitter, or if you want to leave a comment on one of the videos, that'd be great. So with that said, let's get going. The code for this, I'm planning on just using my existing project for the material design samples. It's labeled as a material design sample project, but with a bunch of examples. But in general, I've sort of branched out a little bit, and it just contains a bunch of WPFE related stuff, mostly things that are kind of roughly related to this, because it's kind of hard to figure out where do you draw a line. So this is gonna be a WPF related thing. So step 1, file new project, because that is where we are going to start. Let's see, WPF app, we'll do .NET Core, doesn't make a difference in this case. We will do custom control, and I'm going to bury this underneath styling and custom controls. Yeah, go, that'll work. So it's worth noting within WPF, you've sort of got multiple tiers of where you can go through and do sort of custom UI. So the top level option for you is typically just building out a user control, and those are probably by far the simplest. So if you're unsure what to use, start there, because that will probably put you in the right place. The other ones tend to be around data templates. So for example, this is usually what you end up using if you've got a list of items or a collection of things and you just want to change the way a particular object looks. And then finally, you get all the way down sort of the base level stuff with custom controls. And so sort of the overarching concept that's worth understanding is that WPF controls are lookless. That is, they have the view of how the controls look and the behavior of the controls are two separate things. Way back in ye olden days in Windows Forms or WinForms, controls and how they looked were very tightly coupled together. You had a button, it clicked, it looked this particular way, and heaven forbid you ever want to put an icon inside of that button, because now you got to do custom drawing in order to make it work, right? With WPF, they're like, we're seeing people do a whole bunch of custom rendering stuff just because they want to change the look of the button, not because they want to change the functionality of the button. And so that's when they separated apart the idea of how a control looks from how a control works. So in general, whenever you're going to look at building out a custom control, the first thing you should ask yourself is there an existing control that behaves the way I want, right? So if it's something that I'm going to click on or punch, that's a button, right? If it's something I'm going to type in, that's a text box. Those types of things. Am I going to show some sort of progress? That would be a progress bar. So for our ratings control, we could start with a progress bar and work from there, because we would then have things like current value, minimum, maximum, that kind of thing, right? So we could start there. I'm going to start from a little bit more base level control just so that we can see building up on top of everything. But in general, if there's a control that already has the behavior you want and you just want it to look differently, that's where you should start. Okay, so let's start with this idea. So we are going to go add new thing. Let's see, new item. rating. Let's just call it a star rating. Yeah, that seems good enough. Naming's hard, as is always the case. So we will go, wow, I am just realizing my font is teeny weeny. That hopefully is a little bit better. Okay, so public class, and I think what we're going to do is we're going to pick on something fairly fundamental. Maybe framework element? We'll start here. We may end up changing this if I realize we need more, but in sort of the object hierarchy of WPF land, framework element is pretty base level of a control. So we're just going to go there. You get kind of basic things like width, height, very, very basic level stuff. We might go up to like control or something higher if we need it. Okay. So done. I've made a control, but it's pretty boring. Let's go and actually use it now. So we're just going to drop it in here. So in general, you would probably separate your control into its own project, but in the interest of simplicity, I'm going to just change my startup project before I hit F5 and get confused. Let's see, star rating, right? And we're just going to slap that guy in the middle, vertical alignment center, horizontal alignment center. All right, so we'll just slap that guy in the middle, and I believe this guy's going to want namespace. So compile, and hopefully the thing stops whining at me. It should be hopefully happy. And look at that, we've built a custom control. Just doesn't do anything or look anywhere close to what we want. Okay. There we go. It compiles. First unit test passed. Okay, so let's take a look. So first thing we might probably want is some sort of rating. And this is sort of where we might make a first choice. One could argue that we might want to do like an enum to limit it to values 1 through 5. I think in this case I'm just going to use an int and whack the user upside the head if they pick a bad value, right? So let's see. Attached. Come on. What is it? Oh, I'm sorry. Come on. Pen. Come on. Where is the... Oh, don't tell me you got rid of my... Where's my... Did you get rid of my snippets? Show only keywords. Where is the only... Show only snippets. I want... Well, that's dumb. That's dumb. It apparently has dropped some snippets that I used to have. So, rather than thinking too hard, oh, man, all my stuff is tiny. I'm just going to go steal from another project real quick because I don't want to think too hard on this syntax because that requires like thinking and typing. So we're going to drop this in and then we'll clean it up. So, for controls, you don't create standard properties or like WPF auto properties like what you normally would. To support the data binding framework, properties need to have a lot more information associated with them. So in this case, the standard way to add a property to a custom control is just to create a static field. By convention, your last name is property on this, so we're going to just call it value because reasons. And this guy will become value to match, but your static field is suffixed with the word property, and then you create a standard C# property whose getter and setter reference this guy. So we are going to do a couple quick changes. First of all, we're going to change the type of this guy, and then we're going to change the property that's being referenced. We'll just do that. We'll do this. So this is what your C# property ends up looking like. So just a standard property. The getters called getValue and setValue. These are base level methods that come on dependency object, which is the foundational level that all UI elements build on top of. Right? This is, I think, the only thing below dependency object is probably object. It's either one-off object or very close to it. But these methods actually reach into the system that gets used for the bindings to be able to do this. So, for example, if something needs to set one of these properties and then unset it, there has to be something keeping track of that information to know what unset it means, right? And so we will then change this guy. So your dependency property is effectively registering up this property as something that can be used, right? So several parameters, the name of your property here, the type that it is, the owner type. So this is who's actually where, I guess the cleanest way to say this is the class that is declaring the property. This is also for if you do attached properties, where that comes into play as well. So, and I guess we could do default event. That's fine. And then finally, the property metadata. So in general, you just need property metadata. There is also a derived class from this called framework property metadata. So if you have a property that you want to use to, say, trigger a layout pass or trigger out a new rendering pass, that's when you would switch and use framework property metadata, because its constructor has an overload that lets you set those flags. We may get to that. We probably won't need it. So we're just going to do this. So here, let's come down here and let's make this a little more interesting so we can interact with this guy, since we currently don't have any interactions. Let's see. Button content plus, and how about button content? I guess this should be backwards, right? Minus on the left, plus on the front. I think what we're going to do is just stack panel orientation horizontal. So what we're going to do here is just give ourselves a couple buttons that we can use to increment and decrement the value on our star rating control. That way there's a simple way of interacting with it. Let's see. Button click, that sounds great. Button click 1. So we might consider better options, but apparently it's not going to let me rename that. But now that I save the file, only namespace prefixes can be renamed. Well, doesn't that just bite? How about increment, decrement, right? And then we got to give this guy a name so we can reference him in our code behind. So name, rating control. I very intentionally decided to pick a name that didn't match the type name, just so that it's clear what is the name of the control versus the local field reference. So rating control dot value plus plus rating control dot value minus minus. Okay, so all that work, and we still have a control that when we look at this, I think it'll let me do this, renders as absolutely nothing, which is not really helpful. So proof is in the pudding. Let's just start our value at 3, right? So regardless, we've got a value, we can set it, but we can't really do anything with it because there is no UI associated with it. So again, the behavior that we have is a simple control with a value property on it, but we don't have essentially any interaction or any GUI associated with it. So the next thing that we need to do is we actually need to create some sort of template and look and style for this. So we're going to come up here and add a new resource dictionary. Let's see. Rating control style. Okay, and so let's go through and we are going to create a new stop it. Don't help me, Visual Studio. Okay, so we are going to create a new style, and the target type of this style will be the, let's see, X type local rating, oh no, star rating. Gotta keep my stuff right. And I think we'll just go ahead and give this guy a key. Star. I don't know. Text star rating. All right, so we'll give this guy a key here. And then the most important thing for us to go through instead on here. So let's see. Setter property is going to be the template property, because without this, we don't have any UI to go with it. And you'll note that I went through and I explicitly used element syntax for these because you can't realistically inline this. So, and then we will do a control template, and this will be a target type of local star rating. Okay. If this level of nesting starts to get to be a pain, actually we might just preemptively do it. We're just going to preemptively pull it out and move this guy into its own little thing so that I don't have to keep doing this. So how about text star rating template, right? And then we will just inline this guy right here. Value, static resource, text star rating template. Boom. Okay, so let's go through and next we need to actually reference that that resource dictionary. So right now this resource dictionary is just kind of hanging out. He's not doing a whole lot. He's got some information in him, and actually let's put something in it just so we can see it, right? Text gets template goes here, right? That should be about a large and ugly of a visual to do as we can possibly get to. Are you unhappy about something? Template is not recognized or not accessible. What? Am I? Oh, do I need to go up a level in my hierarchy? We'll see. This mayor. We'll see if this guy squawks at me. If so, we'll just bump up our base class. Oh, we've got all kinds of errors because one of us, increment, decided to rename the methods. Decrement. See, there's recompile before we get too carried away. Value is not recognized or not accessible. I'm sorry, what? You compiled a moment ago. I'm guessing that is property template. What did I do wrong here? Let's just go and look. We might need to check and see. I might need to bump up the base class that's on this. Do you not have a template? Let's go. Let's just work our way up the food chain real quick. You are less. Troll. Oh, hush now. Hush now. There we go. We'll just go up to a control. There. Now you should be happier, I assume. There you go. So if there are properties that you need in the visual or in the UI hierarchy tree, go up and down accordingly. Okay. So we've got the style, we've got the content template, they're being referenced, we're good. But we've got a resource dictionary that is not being included anywhere. So on our window, I'm going to back you up just a little bit because it'd be nice to see something. We will add it in. Window resources, let's see, resource dictionary. So this is certainly one of the areas that gets very long and verbose, and it can be a bit of a pain every time you want to go through and merge a dictionary, effectively add a reference to another resource dictionary. So because you end up having to spell out everything. Resource dictionary source. You gonna be happy? Let's see, rating control style.xaml. Okay, and now what we can do is we can come down here and we can add in our style. So static resource text star rating. And if we rebuild this guy, I assume that little red square should get all hip and cool and not work at runtime. That just doesn't sound fair. What is your problem? Text star rating template. Oh. Order of operations matters. Now if we come back over here, dun, da, 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 it is now resolving our template and applying it. Now there's a few things that we probably want to do here before we get too carried away with building out the template. So step one, in general, I usually try to make sure that all of my things or all of my styles have keys on them. However, you don't want to have to go through and specify that this is the default style on every single one of those controls, because if we omit this style, right, the entire template goes away, which is not useful. So what you want to do is you want to have a default template that ends up getting referenced, right? So what you do is we will create a default template. So style, actually here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to grab this line right here. Boom. Right? So to make a default one, you simply omit the X key. So the key for a style will either be the explicitly specified key that you've entered, or it will be an implicit style, and it will be based around the target type. So when in doubt, if it can't find or if it sees a control of type star rating, it will end up using this style. So if we omit this, our template goes away. And the reason is because these two styles, there's no relationship. So we could go through and we could add this setter in to our new default style. But a better solution is simply to grab the based on and go static resource text star rating. Right? Pull that guy through, and now we're back to resolving it. And you'll note I no longer have to specify my style down here. So the implicit styles are a great way to go through and actually apply your base styles to everything. It's also the way when we're doing custom control libraries, how most of these get split out. So practical example. So inside of the material design library, you'll note that as part of the getting started, inside of the main demo on the app.xaml, one of the things that you have to reference, so one of them is the bundled theme. This is just around getting the right colors. But the other very important line to add is this guy right here. So this is referencing a resource dictionary called material design themes.defaults.xaml. If we go look at that resource dictionary, if I come down here, themes, defaults. This resource dictionary here, one, has a reference to a whole bunch of other dictionaries, but then its sole purpose is to go through and declare a bunch of implicit styles on all of the various WPF types. So button, calendar, checkbox, combo box, anything that this library has a style for, it will go through and use. Sorry. I am wanting to turn off my AC unit so it doesn't annoy me all night. So that is how when you reference the material design library, if you aren't seeing your styles come through, or hey, I added your NuGet, where are my styles? Why doesn't my app change its theme? Usually the first question I have is, well, did you reference this library? Because as soon as you bring this in, it now has a bunch of implicit styles that it can use when it sees your controls to know what is the appropriate style. It's also why if you go through and set your own style, it's important that you also set the based on property on that style so that it can properly grab the right defaults for everything. Right? Because if you don't set a based on, you're effectively wiping out that style and just straight up replacing it with your own. You're not merging the two together. Okay, so now we've got that. We've got template goes here. That's not helpful. So I'm going to see if I can get this to play nice. I don't know if I'll get this perfect, but I wonder if I can just put you right about like that. Okay, so let's look at this template. So for starters, this is a horrible template. Mostly because template goes here is not useful, and really what we want is we want something that reflects the value that we've set. So let's go through and do something. So if we do template binding and we can do value, you will note that this now is going to show us the value from our control. It's showing 3 right now because that is what we defaulted our value property to as well. So let's actually launch this because it's cool, kind of cool to see. Except for I think I have completely stripped out where the control is located. So let's go back. I gotta fix. Okay, the side-by-side docking is not going to work for me. That's not going to work. We gotta fix this grid up real quick. So how about grid row definitions, row definition, and the default of a row definition is 1 star. So we'll get one share of the total height. And then we'll do this. We'll do this. Actually, just gonna do this, and that'll put both of those there. Oh, that's not actually gonna work. Okay. Width 100. It's not the ugliest UI I've ever built, but it's pretty close. Okay, so pile that guy, and let's figure out. I'm a little confused why I'm not seeing why my template went away. Oh, because you are not at the right location. So how about grid row 1? So it claims to be right there. Where did my beautiful template go? I'm going to launch it because I don't trust my designer. Hello. And this is where we debug and proof that my demos are not faked. So 3, 4. Okay, so it's there. Where's my UI? Where's my UI? Okay, I'm going to check real quick because I don't know what happened. We're going to grab Snoop and just take a quick peek and see what is going on inside of this window. So inside of my main window, I'm going to dive down until I run into my grid. There's my stack. And here's the control as part of my visual tree. Now inside of it, let's see, I have a text block that has a width of 0. And its text property is blank, which is not really that helpful. Oh, is it because the type mismatch? Because we know it's there. I am very, very confused. It clearly registered. The value changed. It's a template binding, so it should go to the control template to look it up. It's clearly there. Template binding. Let me just make sure I'm not landing on something weird. Come on. template binding value. I'm not crazy, right? You can resolve. You can. What am I missing? What am I missing? It should just display and show it. The only thing I can come up with at the moment is that it's for some reason unhappy about the value of it. Let's just hypothetically try something. So background blue, all right, and that should let's see, horizontal alignment. I kind of want it to just stretch. So I don't see that. Let's go here, wrap this guy in a grid, move you up. Oh, I don't have Karnak running again. Fix that. There we go. Now we see keyboard shortcuts. Okay, so let's around template binding background. Sorry, just testing to try and figure out where I went wrong. So there it is there. If I drop background, it doesn't do anything, right? So it's worth noting the edit and continue can oftentimes get very confused when you are, yeah, there it's gone. So I'm going to go with this guy must be very unhappy about the type. That's got to be what it is. We'll circle back to this in a moment. Yeah, I'm a little surprised at that. I'm trying to remember. Template bindings, there are special rules around them, and I don't always remember them exactly. So let's just do, well, trying to decide, do I spend time debugging this or not? We're going to go value here, and there's a few other concepts that I want to get to. So real quick, just to note something. So we've got it displaying value here, right? And if we look at this guy in Snoop, because I like Snoop, right? If I look at him, here is my ratings control, and then inside of this, because this is the visual tree, we see the grid and then the text block. These two elements are coming from my controls template, because a controls template defines how it renders inside the visual tree. So as WPF comes along, it gets down to star rating and goes, okay, I've got a star rating element, great. What do I do with that? What does it actually look like? And because we have a template, it knows, oh, okay, I put a grid in and then I apply the text block. You'll note then if I go through and set the background color to blue, that promptly gets ignored. However, if I look up here, right, I can see that my background color has clearly been set to blue. The problem is blue on the ratings control by itself doesn't mean anything, right? The problem is because inside of the template itself, no one's using that property. Everyone's just ignoring the background property, and so it ends up getting dropped. So in like the material design library, this will often crop up in bug reports where people say, hey, I applied this property and nothing happens. It's like, well, the most likely explanation is that nothing inside of the template is using it. Probably an omission in most cases. And so the fix then is to go through on the template and go, okay, where should background be applied, right? Should the background be applied, let's see, template binding background, right? Should the template be applied to the parent grid? Perhaps it should only be applied to the individual text block, which unfortunately it's going to leave both of those there and you got to restart. changing templates, edit, continue. Not always hip to the changes. It tries. It really tries. Oh, and the text block itself is apparently filling this. So we could go through here and say something like vertical alignment center. All right. So now if we look at it, even though the control itself is filling the entire row, the text block is only filling up the center area. So the question then with all of these is, where should all of these properties go? So the key thing here to note is going through and building a control template can actually be quite involved. And most of the time when people go to build a control template, my recommendation is don't. If there's any way you can get around not building your own control template, do that, right? Because even though you have complete control, there's no halfway street. You either take complete control of the template, and at that point, you are clear to do whatever the heck you want, right? You can make it look and act however we want. Or if you can find properties and things just to tweak on it that are used within the template, that's by far better because now you don't have to redo everything. If you do have to redo a template, it's by far better to start with an existing template for the control, start with its default template, and then tweak it accordingly, right? That'll usually get you close enough, and more importantly, it'll save you the headache of trying to figure out where should all of my default properties get applied at, right? Unfortunately for us, we don't really have a great explanation for how this is going to go, so we're going to build this out here. Right? So I think what we're going to do is let's make this ratings control. I'm trying to think if I want to do this with or without the material design library in here. We might just start without it. I'm thinking what we'll do is we'll just rev it and build it up and have the thing go across, I think. Maybe? Yeah, sure, let's go for it. Okay, so let's do maybe a border control. Right? And I think what we're going to do is we're just going to have the, because I think my intent is going to have the value be to go up to like 5, right? That's kind of normal. And I think what we'll do is we'll just have the border slowly fill up the space going across, right? This is no longer really accurate for text, but whatever. And have this go across. Actually, before we do that, I kind of want to debug this just a hair further. Because I want to nope, that button. I want to confirm that because the template binding on value should be working, right? And I have a hunch the issue is the type, and I think I want to just do a quick value converter. Yeah, I think I'm a little surprised it's not handling this, but something in the back of my mind is telling me that without the converter, it's not going to do it. So let's just really quickly slap this guy together. Public class string converter, value converter. All right, and we're just going to put you in your own file. Autocode to victory, implement the interface, write all the code, return value to string. Just in the event, I know we're not going to hit a null, but we're just going to make absolutely certain. So X key, and you don't have to have your other resources live at the root of your resource dictionary if you kind of want to hide them away. The control template also has its own resources you can leverage. Let's go here, static resource string converter. Just want to confirm that the type is the problem here, because it really should be displaying that value. Hey, look at that. That's better. Oh. Breakpoints out of the way. And then if I remember to do zoom it. Yeah, thanks. And look at that. There's a 4. Click, 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 click. Okay. It was the type mismatch that was the problem. Yay. Okay. So we have a control. We have some stuff in here. There's some issues, right? There's a background. There's the placement of this. So, for example, right here, right? We did vertical alignment center, but we probably don't want that, right? We probably want this to be a template binding of the horizontal content alignment, right? Actually, if you do the horizontal one in the vertical property, that will probably confuse me later. Future Kevin will not be happy. So let's go with horizontal, right? And then this becomes horizontal, right? And if we look back at our main window now, to achieve what we want, nope, don't do that. We can now do horizontal content alignment, center, right? And then vertical content alignment gets center. And now our text block will end up in the very center of our control. So by going through and figuring out which properties we care about, and then appropriately applying them to each element inside of your template, this is basically the beginnings of building out custom controls and templating. And then from here, the sky's the limit. You now are in control of the visual tree the same way you would up here. But more importantly, you've now encapsulated all of the logic inside of here. So let's go through and trying to think what would be more interesting. I'm thinking let's do maybe some visual state stuff. Yeah, so I think what I might do is leave it as an exercise to the viewer to figure out making this template more interesting. Yeah, I think we're going to leave it as an exercise to the viewer to make this template more interesting. And instead, we'll look at some states and templating options. I think that's probably more interesting. So I'm going to go back to the material design library. And I'm realizing I keep referencing this. For anyone who is unfamiliar with this, I'll just drop a link to the chat. For anyone who cares. That's another library I work on a lot. Well, let's take a quick look because there's a bunch of custom controls in here. What would be a good one to look at for... Let's do dialog host, I think. Yeah, this guy here. So when building out custom controls, you'll probably come across various things like this. So specifically these attributes along the top called templated part, right? And template visual state. So because we have this separation between how a control looks and how a control works, there's still I guess some healthy tension there, because how a control looks, quite often when you interact with the control, your code for your control wants to do something to the UI, right? I want to manipulate something. So for example, let's go, I don't know, we're going to pick on this. Right, so let's pretend inside of our star rating control that maybe on mouse down, mouse double click. We'll do mouse double click, right? So we'll pretend that on mouse double click we want to do something, right? And we don't necessarily want to just manipulate the value property, right? Because we could do this from outside the control. We want, when this happens, we want to ultimately change something, right? Something's happened in our control and I want to manipulate one of the UI elements. The problem being is right here, I have no way of actually knowing what my template is. We know that there's only one template, but this control here, there could be infinite number of templates. Somebody could have rolled their own custom template. So the question now is, how can I get access to the items in the template and be reasonably assured of what's there? So I'm going to drop that guy in. So what we're going to do is we are going to create a couple constants here. So public const string, and let's go with what are we going to call this guy? content wrapper, sure. And by convention, inside of WPF templates, when something's going to be a required element of the template, it's usually prefixed with part underscore content, right? So when you see one of these guys, what this means is the control needs to have this thing exist. So what we're going to say is this control absolutely must have an element in its template called part content, and it has to be of type grid, right? Because down here, I don't know, we're going to do something with it, I guess, because reasons are good, right? Let's just do private bool is big, not bug, big. Bug is something different, right? And then, you know, it is big gets not is big, and then we'll do some more stuff. So change, I don't know, something important. Top tier naming. Thank you, Kenny. I'm glad somebody noticed. My Hello World Cup, for those who care. If you're going to drink Mountain Dew, you should do it from a C# goblet, as is appropriate. Okay, so the thing is, we need to get access to this. So if in the base level control, there is a method called apply template, or on apply template, this guy here. And so inside of, or after this method has been called, the template has been appropriately applied to our control, and we can now query items back out, right? So what you end up doing is find element by name, right? And then we grab, and this is why we declare a constant, right? Because we need the same name up here as in here, right? Var grid. And we'll just cache this guy in a private grid content wrapper, right? We'll just hold on to that guy. Content wrapper. That ain't gonna work. That's a duplicate name. You should not reuse the same name for two different things. Something about top tier naming. And then this guy here, we will cast to a grid. Okay, so now that we have access to the grid, we will do content wrapper, I don't know, content wrapper grid. Trying to think of what would be fun. Private, how about scale transform? Scale. All right, so we're gonna actually just do this. Let's see, content wrapper grid render transform gets scale, scale gets new scale transform. And does your constructor have a, I assume default isn't going to default to 0, but I don't know that for a fact. Just confirm that this is going to default to something saying like 1 and 1. That doesn't leave a lot of confidence. So we're gonna just make sure it scales everything 1 and 1. So if is big, let's see, scale. Scale X gets 2. Scale Y gets 2. Else. Right, and we'll just when you double click on the thing, we'll let you make the rating control big, right? So you'll note this isn't just a, this is something that's actually going to change and stay fixed, right? We're not gonna be changing based upon states of the control. We'll get to that in a moment. Okay, so we got this, and now what we need to do is we actually, so let's fire this up, and I want to grab it here, I guess. Let's grab it. Right, so we're going to go hunting for this guy. We haven't declared one, so this is null, so this goes boom, right? So what needs to happen then, and we could throw an exception, but in general, this isn't a huge deal. In general, what we're saying is this guy here needs to have an X name of part content. So when you see this all caps part underscore, what that really means is this is an element to the template, and the template is expecting to find it, right? And again, the all caps part underscore is convention. You can technically use any string you want, but use this, trust me. If you aren't going to use it as part of the controls behavior itself, don't use part underscore, because people will see this and expect it. Okay, so let's head on down, and oh, now it should work. All right, so let's object reference, except for when I said it now will work, what I mean is it clearly now will not work. Did I just double check this? I didn't do anything stupid, did I? Beyond the obvious. Oh, get templated child. I did. I called the wrong method. You should call the right method, and then see how it works. And I do wish you would stop doing it over here. Okay, so we've got this, right? Double click. And then clearly it works because it went away completely. I'm wondering if it's... Oh, the render transform is on the grid, so the grid is twice the size, so it's going to move off the bottom. Oh, that was not a good idea. That was not a good idea. So the grid is changing size, not the text. We'll make it obvious, but not big enough that it's going to push off the bottom. Let's try this again. There we go. So the grid, again, the render transform is being applied to the grid, so the grid's width and height are now being multiplied and increased by 20%. And so it's effectively pulling and scaling down. So, but we now have a custom user control with a templated part that we can then go and manipulate. So anything that is important for your control's behavior, right? Not its look, its behavior, should be declared as template parts. Okay, now what about doing things for visual states, right? So in most controls, and I'll pick on button again, right? There are various states that the control can be in. You can think of, for a button, there's mouse over, not mouse over. There's enabled, there's disabled. There is pressed and unpressed, right? And so your control might move through several states, and we don't want to have to manage and manipulate state like this in our code behind, especially since the how a state looks should be decoupled from the logic here. But ultimately, the code here determines when you move into a particular state, right? So you want this code to control what state you're moving into, but you want your controls template to define how that state looks. So how does that play out? So that comes into play with the Visual State Manager. So I'm once again gonna steal from the Material Design Project because huzzah. So there are, in this case, this guy is defining a couple visual states for the pop-up, for the pop-up opened, pop-up closed, right? So let's go and do something similar for ours. So I think what we're going to do is define some visual states, and we will once again declare our own constant. So public const string what will be our state? Scary red. Scary red. I guess, right? Happy green. Right? And actually, I guess what we can do is we can abuse this, right? Just to make sure that these things stay in sync. Name of happy green. Points for spelling. Not sure if you're around, Dan, but see, I can't spell either. Let's see. Turns out spelling's hard. So let's go with pop-up states. Rating states sounds good. And we will do scary red state name, right? Let's rename that so I actually get refactoring, right? I can't use name of if I do that. Don't think name of is worth it. So we're just gonna we'll abandon the name of idea. It was nice. It was a thought. We will see where these get used here in a moment. Happy green. Okay, so rating states, and we've got scary red state name, and then we will do happy green. Okay, and it's worth noting that within a state group, states are exclusive, right? So if two states are met, so in our case, we're saying that our rating control cannot be in the scary red and the happy green state at the same time. If you want two states to be able to exist simultaneously, they need to be in separate groups. Okay, so within a group, they're mutually exclusive. If you want them to not be mutually exclusive, put them in their own groups. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to define when we move into this state. Let's see. Let's say, hypothetically, that if the value, I don't know, exceeds, if the value exceeds like 4 will be scary red and less than 2 will be happy green. So on our property metadata, so you can effectively do this anywhere, but in our case what we're saying is we want to do it when the property changes, right? So with the dependency property, yeah, change that for me, please. And change that for me. With the dependency properties, it's very tempting to do property state changes right inside of this setter. Resist temptation to do that. This setter will not get called in all cases that this property gets changed under the hood. Because this is registered up effectively in like a dictionary inside of the base class, various things will manipulate this property and never go through these getter and setters, right? These two methods could be invoked on your object from outside without ever hitting your property. So in general, don't rely on this property its getter and setters being utilized for this property to change. So if you want to know when the property changes, inside of the property metadata, there is a callback. Oh, that is awesome. So let's see. obj args, I believe, is the appropriate lambda expression. All right, did I mess it up? What is the... Wow, typing's hard. There we go. Something a little better there. And am I missing a close paren for the register? Okay, so inside of here, var rating control will get... actually, grumble. We should do this right. Private static void on value changed. And I'm trying to remember the exact signature. Property changed callback. All right, so what are you? Dependency object and dependency property changed event args. Object, dependency property changed event args, E, because your type name was already long enough. And then we will just get rid of you and do on value changed. There. That's cleaner. A little less nesting. So var rating control, because we know that the only way that this guy is going to be triggered is because this guy only lives on the rating control. So we will just straight up convert. Except for by rating control, I clearly mean star rating. So in an effort to not confuse myself, I'm going to do that, and there we go. Okay, so we'll do if e.new value. So on this event args object, there are a few things. There is the new value, the old value, and you do technically get the dependency property object itself. So if you wanted to share callback handlers for some reason because they were very similar, but you needed to tweak one slightly for one property, you can get away with that. The key part is this API is a little old. There are no generics. I don't know if this API predates generics. Regardless, new value and old value are of type objects, so you do need to cast. So it's int new value. So let's see. If new value is greater than or equal to 4, right? We want visual state manager, right? Go to state, right? And now we need to tell it what object we care about. So in this case, it's control, right? And then we need to tell it what state we want to go to. So this will be scary red state, right? And then use transitions. And I think what we're going to do in this case is say, we're just going to say true always. So it is worth noting that use transition, that last value, is a request, not a command, right? You cannot necessarily guarantee that transitions will always be used. For example, if the user has disabled animations inside of Windows, you often will not get your transitions. It will just jump to the final visual state. Okay, so now we've got the logic inside of our control for controlling what state we're going to go to, right? So we've declared that if our value exceeds 4, we're going to be in scary red state. And if our value is less than 2, we'll be in happy green state. Now, I realize I have directly put colors in the names of these, but the look of how scary red and happy green look in the UI don't have to be red and green. In fact, if somebody wanted to be really weird, they could make them be whatever they wanted. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to actually implement the visual states inside of our template. So let's take a look at that. So once again, I'm just gonna straight up start stealing stuff because so much easier. So much easier. So dialog host, something about this. That's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of stuff. We'll just take it all. Sure, great. Okay, so inside the root element for your template, which is where this is typically located, we will add in the visual state manager. So you'll note this is just an added thing that goes in. And now the first thing we need is our group name. So in this case, rating states. Right? So we need to tell it what group we're talking about. And then I think for now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to comment out all the transitions. We're going to do this without transitions first, and then we'll come back and add it. Yeah, I think we'll do that. Okay, and so we need scary red and happy green as our two states. So visual state, and just gonna get rid of all that. Get rid of all that. We're gonna make it nice and pretty. Oop, no. Right? Okay, so we've got our state names. And now the question is, what should scary red do? That's a question, one to which I do not necessarily know the answer to. Let's think for a moment. What would be fun to do if we go into the scary red state? How about we manipulate this guy a little bit, I think. Yeah, let's do this one. Let's do xname text content, right? I just need a name so that I have a way of referencing it. And then inside of each of these visual states, we get storyboards. Storyboards that we can then use to go and target stuff, right? So let's do, say, a double animation. Yeah, we'll just do this, right? So we haven't manipulated this guy too much yet, so let's grab him. Boom. So we'll grab that. Target property. Let's pick on font size, I guess, right? And so what we will say is at key time 0, let's just do double animation. All right, let's not think too hard, because I think double animation has some simple 2 properties. We will animate to, I guess, font size 24 because yes, right? And then down here, we will do the same thing. But if we go into the happy green state, we're going to get small, right? We're going to go to like a 6. And that's it. Let's see it work. Or based upon how my day is going, let's see it fail miserably, and then we can all laugh at Kevin. Real quick, I am going to go and change. That blue is making things hard to see. Let's pick something lighter. Alice. That is like white. How about light blue? There, that's a little more readable. Yeah, see, that's pretty. Okay, so if we go increment. Oh, did you see that animate? You'll note we didn't change states yet, right? Because nothing has told it to change from that state. Even though we just went down, nothing has actually told it leave the state of scary red. So it is still in scary red state, and now it's in happy green state because we got to the 2. And it's going to stay there until we hit the 4. Done. Okay, so, but we do have this sort of weird issue, right? Of right now, it's just doing the double animations, and you can see it's using transitions. So sometimes what you want is you want to just jump to the state rather than animating to it, and you want your control to be able to communicate that. So let's get transitions in here too, right? So let's see, duration 0. All right, I believe that'll kick it off. Duration 0. All right, so I believe that. Yeah, so now it's just going to jump there, right? But we want to go in and add some transitions. So let's make this thing animate. So let's do some transitions. That's a lot of stuff. Okay, more importantly, I don't really care about like all of this. No, delete. Thank you. Boom. Okay, and then if we go up here, let's grab up here, like that, right? Okay, so first thing is we need to declare. I'm wondering if we should give ourselves a normal state. Yeah, let's give ourselves a normal state just so that we have a. So scary red, happy green, Rating state. So somewhere in the middle here. Nope. I can type some days, not often. Let's see. So rather than scary red, how about normal? Normal. Yeah, that sounds normal, right? Cannot be any more normal than a normal state name. So else we need to actually communicate that that's where we want to go. Visual state manager, go to state, control, normal state name, allow transitions. Right? Okay. A common time where you might set this to false is if you wanted to immediately jump to a given state. In our case, we're going to basically default to where we want to be, but we can do this, right? We can let's see, and just force ourselves right into there, just in case we don't get a value change that comes through right away. So all of that stuff, and then I'm just going to add in a normal state, right? So normal, and this guy will be at a 12, I guess. Let's just verify that this works. You'll note that the Visual State Manager, I don't believe, is that unhappy. So if you typo one of your names, you'll note it doesn't care. It's never going to match, but it doesn't care. So there. So 2, 3, 4, back to 3, up to 4. Okay, cool. We got a normal state. So let's say that when we go from normal to scary red, we want to do some stuff, right? Like we might want to actually do like I don't know. Let's do a color animation, right? Let's see, storyboard. Right. So let's hypothetically say that we want storyboard to go through and not font size. How about foreground, right? And we want the color to be, let's see, 2 red, right? We're going to actually make going to scary red scary. So let's fire this up. And boop. Oh, and that be a problem. That be a problem. So the issue being that this guy is wanting a brush, and that was not a brush that I set. Because the foreground property is of type brush, it is not of type color. So let's foreground dot color, and if we come down here and go foreground, I don't know, black, right? You'd probably use a theme brush instead of a hard-coded one, but in lieu of that, we're just going to go here. And you can see, if you watch carefully, very carefully, it gets big, and then you see the color animate to red and then disappear. So what's happening here is on the state transition, this guy fires, right? Along with this guy, right? But this one is going to hold its position at the end of it. The transition is just for transitioning, right? So it depends on what you're looking to have happen. But this can be useful. So let's take this, and actually what we're going to say is anytime we go to scary red, whether it's from normal or not, right? Right now, we can't get from green to red, right? We can't go from happy green to scary red because our buttons only let us increment or decrement. But that's just an artifact of the way we implemented this. There's no reason we couldn't have a button that says always go immediately to scary red state. Like set it to 10, everything's on fire, notify everyone, right? So we're going to set this visual transition to say anytime we go to scary red, I don't care where we transferred from, we always want to be there, right? And then how about anytime we go to what is it, happy green? This is the problem when you pick bad names. When you pick bad names, it comes back to bite you. Also, one comment I was going to make, I kind of did it quickly. The fact that this foreground is now a solid color brush. So inside of the Xaml, there are type converters for solid color brush. So if you type in a hex value or a well-known color name, there is a type converter that will then set this property to a solid color brush with that as its color. So just be aware, I'm abusing the fact that I know that solid color brush has a color property on it. And this was my cheater way of setting a solid color brush. Be aware, if somebody sets, say, a linear gradient brush or radio brush, this is going to fall apart, right? But I set it inside of my template. I'm in control of it. No one else should be able to touch it. Okay, here we go. So plus to the red, down, down. And I just realized it's basically impossible to see that green with how bloody tiny we made that. So let's just fix that real quick. So this guy become happy green is now really important to us. So now we can see it animate. And actually, rather than green, let's do lime. Lime is brighter. It's prettier. So there we go. Fuchsia. Thank you, Kenny. Okay, how does one spell fuchsia? Fuchsia. I can spell. There we go. There. That's right. I know all the horrific colors. That's right. Fuchsia and lime. What could be better? What could be better, right? Let's see here. So I think what I might, so let's do this. So we're going to explicitly set a duration on this, right? So 0, 0, 0. We're going to say it's going to take half a second, right? So I'm kind of doing this intentionally. And then this guy here, well, I guess it's not going to make a difference. It won't make a difference. Okay, so let's see. Have I covered everything I was going to? I think I have. Visual State Transition Managers, control templates, styles, both implicit and explicit. Explicit meaning has a key. Creating these guys here. We could go to the effort of trying to get fancier on this. Template bindings. And then Visual State Manager and handling it inside of this. Yeah. So, next step, let's commit this guy. Let's see. Adding an example of a custom control. And push. And now for all interested parties, that will exist in underneath styling, underneath custom control. For all interested people, there it is. Cool. Anyone have questions? I think that's probably all I was planning on covering on this. There's a couple other things that have been floated for additional topics as well. I might do a coding performance stream on doing performance analysis and fixing. The John from the System Command Line library was looking to do that and thought it might make for something interesting if people are interested in learning that. I also had another request for using expression trees for basically doing like dynamic event registration. So how to build up expression trees to go through and do some of that stuff. And I might couple that a little bit with fun uses of dynamic. Can we cover all the n-squared search algorithms? Oh, Kenny. Yes, we can cover them in as far as you shouldn't do it because performance sucks. Yeah, no problem. So yeah, like I said, if anybody has ideas of stuff that you're interested in seeing, I'm happy to do that. My go-to answers on what I may end up working with when I'm out of ideas are, I keep going back to my testing library as well as the material design stuff. And the material design stuff is probably going to get kicked live shortly. I've been very focused on trying to make sure it has better testing. And that has significantly slowed down my review of issues and Gitter chat and pull requests. And so for people following for that, I vote for expression trees one of these days. I heard, Kenny, did you just volunteer to pair on expression trees? Was that the implication there? Yeah, I can see the expression trees being rather fun. They're one of those areas that you use it and you usually write it once and it's really cool, and then you just wrap it up in a nice little helper method or similar and store it for later. So I've got a couple fun ones that I've done for stuff like that that can be kind of cool to do. So I may sit quietly and absorb everything as quickly as possible. No, not sit quietly. Slow me down, ask questions. Don't let me just talk to myself. Because sometimes I go fast, and having somebody to ask questions and slow me down is usually a good thing. So I think that's probably where I'm going to leave things for tonight. It's been a long week. Actually, before I go, just in the off chance anyone has ideas, I will show you the problem that I have been struggling with for the last couple days, and it is frustrating me. Okay. So, I think last week's stream I did my Xaml test library. So this, if people haven't seen it, this is a library that is being purpose-built to effectively be able to write tests. So all of those styles and templates, like what we just showed there, are great, except for there is no reasonable way to write unit tests or UI tests against them, right? That is kind of a pain in the neck. So I have built this library in an effort to address that, because I want to write quote-unquote unit tests against my templates, because I want to be able to make some assertions on how they work and how they behave, specifically for the material design library, because most of that library's code is inside of the Xaml, and so I don't want it to go untested. So I don't think this is a general purpose UI testing library, but it is purpose built for people who are building custom controls and templates so that they can write tests against those. So that's the intent. And to do that, this library needs to have the ability to effectively do a lot of stuff like what Appium does, or Selenium for people who are familiar with the web side of things. And so I've built it out. So these are my tests, right? They are very simple. They are not hard. They create a window and they shove some XAML content into that window, right? So if people are interested in how this library works, go watch my old streams tagged with XAML test. I go through kind of building it out, and I've been working on this. But I've got these two tests, right? So this test creates a text box, sets the keyboard focus, sends some text, right? So it does little typey simulation, right? And then asserts that after it sent this input, that the text of my text box is correct, right? That's it. This test passes. Test 2. This guy creates a text box. Now there is one teeny weeny little thing about it. It has this accepts return property set to true, which means it's a multi-line text box that you can hit enter to go to the next line in. That's it. right? I did not realize how hard this was going to be to test, right? It's got some positioning stuff and some sizing stuff just because there's a bug with my screenshot code. This test fails, right? Fails. And it fails not due to this, not due to this. It fails on this line here, which is remarkably similar to this line here. But it only fails on my pipeline. It does not fail locally. So, proof is in the pudding, right? Run tests. So we'll fire these up, boom, boom. So you'll note how it's actually running the test is it's actually firing up a WPF window and evaluating this. So it gets the full rendering stack, but it does it rather fast. These two tests both pass. Okay. Insert frustration here. Let me just go back and make sure I'm on the latest. You'll note I've got a string of failed builds. This is exciting. Ton of warnings. So as part of this thing's pipeline, there's a clever trick happening with this little recorder class. If anything here throws an exception, such as the assert call, before hitting the success, it'll automatically save a screenshot at the end of the test. Otherwise, you can manually call save screenshot. So this save screenshot is here just to ensure that I always get one for this test. This one's failing, so I'm guaranteed to get one. So on my pipeline, I'm going to close that because I keep opening the wrong window. So on my pipeline, one of the steps after the test fail is it always uploads any screenshots that it took. So just so that I can always get them. So we download them. As you can see, test images, we're getting to be a largish number. And then it automatically does some fancy naming and whatnot. So the key part here is it does tell me which test each of these go to. So we will note on send text input, text is changed, right? This guy here. You will note the screenshot that it took shows the text box with the text entered. Okay? That's key. So the test passed as one would expect. This one here shows the text box with no text entered. And I haven't the foggiest idea why. Because again, it passes locally and works just fine. Something is different, and I have no idea what it is. And it's frustrating me. So, if anyone solves it or wants to play with it, you are welcome to do so. PRs will automatically run the test for you on my pipeline. The link to the repo is there. And the branch that I'm playing on is called key up. Because initially it was fighting with the fact that the enter key apparently only sends key up and not key down, which confused me for a very long time. So with all of that said, this has been the bug that I've been banging my head against, and I'm at the point where I'm just going to start trying random stuff until it works, or at least until I get a hint as to what is causing the difference. The one other somewhat interesting bit, I'll show this too, because I thought this was, I felt rather clever with myself. That's not the right folder. Let's try this again. Let's just go back. If I go to, like, say, test images 1, that doesn't show it. Go back. One of these will happily show it. Yeah. So one of my first failure cases, I did notice that when I screenshotted the window inside of the build agent, apparently this is what's running on it, which that was fun. That was exciting. I was like, oh, that's a bit of a problem if there's a window over the top of my window that's sitting always on top. I kind of need to be able to clicky on my stuff, and that's going to be an issue. So there was this. This was problem 1 to address, and the hacky solution that I came up with is I execute a little bit of PowerShell to minimize all windows before running my tests. I thought this was clever. It's probably not, but I thought it was fun. It seemed like a clever trick. There is a couple weird issues that I know I'm going to run into. Most notably, the resolution on those build agents is tiny, and I am not entirely sure how to set the resolution on a build agent that is running GitHub Actions. That's not a self-hosted agent. So, and I'm not sure if it's possible or if I'm supposed to be able to do it. So I think I probably can, but I might need a little magic utility to do it. But as I've recently discovered today, changing screen resolution is kind of hard. So I might need to do that. The other thing is the default window size that I'm using is actually smaller, or I'm sorry. The resolution on my build agent is smaller than the default window size being used by most of my tests. So you'll note that many of my tests, the windows off screen, or you can see the bottom here is hiding behind the taskbar. So that problem will rear its head if I ever try to do like a clickable element that is within or that is outside of the effective bounds of where I can act. So, okay, that was a long-winded way of saying I think I'm tired. I think I might be done for the night. So I think that's where I'm going to leave it, unless people have questions. Again, if people have ideas for stream ideas or topics you would like to watch me ramble on about for a little bit, like I said, either drop me a comment on one of the videos, or feel free to hit me up on Twitter and shoot me messages and let me know what you think. But I think for now, I'm going to say happy coding. Good night, Kenny. I'll see you in the morning. Thanks for coming, everyone.